Welcome to another video. This is Liam from Liam's Lyceum, aka Himbar. Today I will be doing the ABC book challenge that was issued by Nico from Nico's Book Reviews. I'll link his video down in the description. It's basically an open-ended challenge given to everyone who ever wanted to do it. And I decided to do it. The reason you're seeing my face right now is because I thought it'd be a pain to try to put in 26 images. Because the whole goal of this video is to find a book for each letter of the alphabet that starts with that letter. So for example, A needs to start with A, B needs to start with B. You can count books that start with A, and, or the. For example, like The Great Hunt, would count as a G. For me personally, I tried to do books I've read. There's a couple in there I haven't read. I believe I succeeded in not repeating authors. So if I did Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, then I didn't do The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. So let's get right into it. So for A, we have Against the Horde by David Gemmell. This is actually commonly published as Legend. This is the only version, I believe, that is Against the Horde, which is why I'm using it. Just a little flex, just kidding. This is the first US version. This is actually the only book I've read by Gemmell so far, and I read it earlier this year, but I'm looking forward to more. Getting them out of the way, for B, I have Brandon Sanderson's The Bands of Mourning. This is book 3 of Mistborn Era 2, a book I read 2017, I think. Really good book. Love it. Looking forward to the 4th one. It's supposed to come out this year. For 3, I have another book I read this year. This is The Curse of Chalian by Lois McMaster Bujold. Really good book. Low fantasy, more kind of political intrigue. It is the first book in the World of the Five Gods by McMaster Bujold. I have a couple more books by her, and I do plan on getting to them eventually. For D, I decided to go with The Dying Earth by Jack Vance. This is the omnibus. It contains all 4 Dying Earth novels. I read the first 2, and in fact, I'm going to have a review up for The Eyes of the Overworld very soon. But this is, again, another novel I read this year. And it's interesting. It came out in 1950, 1951, somewhere around there. A very weird fantasy, definitely pulp fiction. It's very interesting. I'll just keep it at that. And speaking of eyes, I have The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan for the letter E. I read the whole series, multiple years ago, and I just have the good old handy-dandy mass market paperback still. So for F, I decided to go with the book series that's near and dear to my heart. I do run my Dungeons & Dragons blog. It's more so for Forgotten Realms. There's other D&D settings. Forgotten Realms is the one I like to focus on and has the most novels. And the first novel series I ever read was the Brimstone Angel series by Aaron M. Evans. And so for F, I have book 4, Fire in the Blood. This is actually the only hardback I have of the series. And this is a really good series about tiefling sisters. And tieflings are mortals that have demonic or devilish blood in them. They're kind of YA. The twin sisters are teenagers, and it's really interesting because one's a warlock and one is a fighter. And they have an adopted father that is a dragonborn. So anyways, that's my F. For G, I decided to go with George R.R. Martin's A Game of Thrones. I've read the first 3 in this series so far, and this one has been my favorite, actually. I wasn't expecting that based off what I had heard, but I read this one late last year, and I enjoyed it, and I will eventually get to books 4 and 5, and whenever 6 and 7 come out, I'll probably read those. For H, hopefully this isn't too loud, I have The House of the Wolfiends by William Morris. This copy is from the 1890s, very old, is one of my antique books. It's actually in pretty good shape. You can still maybe see some of the gilt that's on top there. This is the first of Morris's prose romances. And the prose romances are ancestors to our modern fantasy genre. They were a big influence on authors like C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien. I did do a video on this on my brother's channel. I'll link that in the description. But if you really wanted to know more about William Morris, I would talk to Philip Chase, because that's even what he did his dissertation on. So, House of the Wolfiends. For I have a science fiction, I don't know if you'd call it a classic, it's definitely not new, but that is The Integral Trees by Larry Niven. It's got this awesome Michael Whalen cover. I read this one in May of this year, and I didn't actually enjoy it all that much. I've noticed the more I read Niven that his character work's not the best, his plot's not the best, but his settings are really cool. That's why I read Niven for his settings. So this is a really cool thing that's about these giant trees kind of floating through space around a neutron star and people living on them. Very interesting. That's my eye. For J, I think this may be the first book that I haven't read yet, but that is Roger Zelazny's Jack of Shadows. I want to get to this one soon. I only got it last week. I haven't read any of Zelazny, but I hear good things, and so I'm really looking forward to it. For K, I decided to go with one of my favorite current series. That is The Cantavan Vault by Joel Shepard. This is book 3 of the Spiral Wars. It's a space opera series, and there are currently 7 books out, though there are 10 planned in the series. I finished the first 5, but Cantavan Vault was really fun. I love these covers. They're a little expensive because they're print on demand. It's an indie published book series, but really good, really, really good. In fact, I'm thinking about making a video on it. For L, I decided to go with Tolkien's The Legend of Sigurd and Gudrun. I actually had to read this one for class last year sometime, and I really, really enjoyed it. Tolkien knows his poetry. This is poetry, basically, of his kind of version of a classic Germanic saga, and really good. It kind of gives you a sneak peek onto Tolkien's day life, besides writing The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and Silmarillion and other works. This is a really good book, but that's my L. For M, I decided to go with Midnight's Mask. It's the book 1 of the Erebus Chaos trilogy. This is another Forgotten Realms Dungeons & Dragons novel by Paulus Kemp. I actually just finished this character's complete line with the Godborn, and I love this character. This is the first book in the trilogy, but there's a sequel trilogy and a sequel novel following that. There's one book about Erebus Chaos, like kind of his origin stories, that actually is in part of another series. It's called Shadow's Witness. That takes place before this one, but Midnight's Mask is my M choice for today. For N, I have another Forgotten Realms novel. This is Lynn Abbey's The Nether Scroll, book 4 of the Lost Empires. Those books aren't really connected. It's kind of have a similar theme of Lost Empires, surprise. While I did enjoy this book, it starts out really slow, and for a book that's only 300 pages, that wasn't like the greatest thing, but I read this one about a year ago, and I do like Lynn Abbey's writing. She's known mostly for her Thieves' World books. I have Oath of Swords by David Weber? Maybe it's David Weber, I'm not really sure. I think it's David Weber. He's mostly known for his space opera books, such as On Basilisk Station and so forth. But this is a sword and sorcery series. I have a few books actually in this series. I've been planning to get to it for a while, but Oath of Swords is book 1 in that series. P, I had kind of a hard time picking this book out. I did decide to go with Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis. Actually, another book I haven't read. I should have thrown in a book I have read. I could have, but I didn't want to take the time. I have the entire Narnia Chronicles, but I haven't read any. Narnia Chronicles? Chronicles of Narnia. So, book 4 in that, at least. That's Prince Caspian. That's my P. For Q, I have Quag Keep by Andre Norton. I actually read this one again earlier this year, and I didn't actually enjoy it very much. I read it mostly because it's the first Dungeons & Dragons novel ever published. Andre Norton I hear good things about, but I hear this is one of her lesser known but also not as good works. There is a sequel that came out in 2005 or 6 or so, shortly after she passed, also co-written by Gene Robb. But I'm not sure if I'll ever get to that sequel. This was interesting, but it didn't actually... It's very interesting, actually. It's nothing like that other Dungeons & Dragons novels, but that's my Q pick. So for R, I decided to go with a non-fiction book. They're on a different bookshelf in a different part of the house, but this is Tom Shippey's The Road to Middle-earth. It's a Tolkien scholarship book. I've read this. This is a great book for anyone interested in Tolkien, and what can I say? This is my R pick. So speaking of Tolkien, I actually, for my S pick, I thought it was kind of the mood right now. There's been a couple videos thrown around about mentioning this book, and because there's an adaptation coming out at the end of this month, and that is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. I have Tolkien's translation here along with Pearl and Sir Orfeo, and I also have Marie Boroff's version as well. I've read both. I like both. Tolkien's version is always great. I mean, I'm a little biased though. So Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is one of my favorite Middle English works, though it is a little easier definitely to read the Canterbury Tales. Yeah, but Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is my S pick. For T, I decided to go with a book that I also read this year. This is a big book. This is known for its largeness. That's the 3rd book in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn to Green Angel Tower. This is the 1-volume edition. This is my favorite cover for To Green Angel Tower. But this is also the book club edition, so smaller than the normal hardcovers or whatever. But this is actually the cover for the normal hardcovers. That's actually how you can tell the difference. If you can't see the size like online, if this looks like the cover, that's the normal typical hardcover. This is the book club edition hardcover. This should have been the cover in my opinion. This is a Michael Whalen painting, of course. Fantastic, fantastic book. Loved this thing. Also huge. I think the largest book I've ever read. I'm not entirely sure on that though. Anyways, that's my T pick. For you, I had a little bit of a hard time figuring out what book I wanted to use because there were a couple options I had, but I decided to go with a young adult novel I read a couple years ago. I read this around the time I read Mistborn, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was one of my favorite reads of the year. That is Unwilling Souls by Gregory D. Little. It actually just got re-released with new covers. It's a 4-book series, with the first 3 being out right now, and the 3rd book has a different cover, and so they re-released the 1st and 2nd books to match that 3rd cover. But Unwilling Souls, not too hefty of a read. I actually really enjoyed the 2nd book more so than the 1st book, and even more so than the 3rd book for that matter, and Ungrateful God. They're one of those series that has similar titles. It's Unwilling Souls, Ungrateful God, and Unleashing Iron. So if you're interested in that, this is pretty cool. Look it up. I mean, I didn't really tell you anything about it, but it's pretty good, honestly. So for V, this one has gotten a little hot in the book community online recently. That's Zach Argyle's Voice of War. The 2nd one actually just came out in April. I read this one, I believe it was early this year. It might have been late last year. I'm not entirely sure actually. But I did enjoy it. Wasn't fantastic for me, but I thought it was good, and that was my V pick. For W, I decided to go with another Forgotten Realms novel. As you can tell, I've read a lot. That is The Wyvern Spur by Kate Novak and Jeff Grubb. It's book 2 in the Finder Stone trilogy, one of my favorite trilogies. This book's more of a murder mystery compared to the high adventure of the 1st and 3rd novels, but that's my W pick. Okay, for X, I knew this would be a problem. Of course, I did have the novel Xenocide I was thinking about, but I didn't. That's one of the books that's packed away. So I decided to go with Zakarf by Clark Ashton Smith. It is in the Lost Worlds number 2 here, along with Hyperborea, Atlantis, and some other stories. But Zakarf, I don't know if you can even see it in there underneath Lost Worlds. So that's my X. This is another one I haven't read. I could have probably read it before filming this video. It's not very long. And then this is where it all falls apart. I will admit right now I don't have a Z, and I don't really have a Y. I'm just kind of taking a page from Nico's book. What he did with his X was put up the first Xanth novel. I was going to put up the Year of Rogue Dragons novels, which is The Rage. This is a trilogy, though it has 2 anthologies that also goes along with it, called The Realms of the Dragons 1 and 2, respectively. And again, I haven't read The Rage. I do plan on it. I really like Richard Lee Byers' writing. I've read some of his other Dungeons & Dragons works, and that's who writes this. So that's my A through Z. Give me any suggestions for Z down below, or really any real good ones for Y. I was thinking of You Are Special, that I believe it's a Christmas book. I'm not really sure. It's a small short story picture book, but I don't have a copy of that anymore. So how did I do? What do you think? And also just give me feedback on this video. I'm not sure how the editing is going to turn out, how the sound is, how the lighting is, and just the quality of the video in general. I hope it's okay. I mean, if it was terrible, I probably wouldn't upload it unless I completely miss it somehow. This has been Liam with Liam's Lyceum doing the ABC Book Challenge. And if any of you want to do that, go ahead. But I'll see you next time.